Bralen Trice is done for the year. Who do the Falcons turn to next to bolster their pass rush?
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. We're going to help you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So, guys, if you don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, a.k.a. Mr. Drew, a.k.a. Sirius Black, a.k.a. the Jolly Green Giant, a.k.a. the Iron that sharpens the iron, a.k.a. Mr. a.k.a. And, of course, I've been covering the Atlanta Falcons for almost 2 decades, formerly at FalcFans.com, RIP, still going strong on this illustrious podcast. And I think each and every one of you that goes strong with me, all of you everydayers, shout out to you, right, that tune into this podcast as your first listen or first watch each and every day. And if you want to become an everydayer like them and be so illustrious, all you got to do is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So the Falcons made a bunch of roster moves on Sunday, which is why this episode is airing a little bit later on YouTube than it normally is. I had to sort of reset because originally I was going to do stock up and stock down, although it was just going to give me an excuse to talk more about Michael Penix and Zach Harrison. But then the Falcons officially put Bralen Trice on IR, made a couple of other roster moves. They picked up Jakeem Grant. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But they added 3 players, right? Officially, wide receiver, kick returner Jakeem Grant, quarterback John Paddick, running back Spencer Brown. They lost 3 players. 2 of those go on IR. That's Bralen Trice, the outside linebacker, their rookie outside linebacker, 3rd-round pick. Harrison Hand, the cornerback that they picked up, some point in like May or June. And Nathan Rourke, who they picked up a week ago, the quarterback, right? And basically, Paddick is going to replace Rourke as the sort of guy that's going to play in the fourth quarters of these games. I think Spencer Brown, the running back that they picked up, who's spent the last 3 years with the Panthers, he'll also add some depth in the fourth quarter of these preseason games. The fact that, Nathan Rourke struggled on Friday, the excuse was he's only been on the team. He's had like 4 practices. And so, you're not going to master the offense, but I figure the team basically is like, they just want someone who does understand the offense because John Paddick has been, learned this offense since May, that at least can operate the offense more consistently. And that's going to allow them to evaluate other players, not necessarily because I think John Paddick is really, a likelihood to push for a roster spot. Now, maybe he balls out these next 2 weeks, but we'll see. But this is stock up, Taylor Heineke's stock up is now because he's still very likely to be the QB3 with Nathan Rourke gone. But, I think the other issue with Brown is that 25 carries between Carlos Washington and Jace McClellan. And Brown gives you another option to kind of spread the load around, right? And this is a strong indicator that we will not see Bijan Robinson or Tyler Algier this summer, right? And we'll talk later when we get to Jakeem Grant at the end of the episode. I think there's reasons why the Falcons will also want to limit Avery Williams' exposure to potential injury in these preseason games as well. So Hand got injured in the joint practices last week, and Trice, of course, got injured on Friday night. We'll talk more about Jakeem Grant at the end of the episode. NFL Network did confirm that Bralen Trice tore his ACL, which is what I expected it to be based off of the injury on Friday night. And as we discussed on Friday night, this is a significant setback for Bralen Trice. And, this is going to sound harsh, but guys that miss their rookie seasons due to injuries typically don't have great outcomes in the NFL. From covering the Falcons for, 2 decades, and this is not a comprehensive list, but this was the list I came up with of guys that we drafted that, basically either got hurt in camp or got hurt very early in September and missed their rookie seasons. John Fitzpatrick, Devin Fuller, Marquise Sproul, Brady Ewing, Pere Jerry, Mike Johnson, Kerry Meyer, Thomas Brown, Doug Dadish, and Jordan Beck. And I'm sure plenty of people listening to this podcast are like, I don't know who some of those players are. And that's kind of the point, right? Now, several of those guys were late round picks. So they already had long odds of making the roster, but those odds get even longer when you miss injuries, miss time, especially in year 1 and even in year 2. Like Sterling Hofrichter is a name of a guy that missed year 2. Because, those first 2 years of development are so important, so critical for these players. And this is why it's devastating to Bralen Trice, where most of these guys that wind up getting drafted don't really do a whole lot until like their third year or later in their NFL careers. And you kind of need those 2 years to, whether it's playing special teams, whether it's being a starter, just to kind of get the reps that you need to develop so that you can, then have that breakout potential, whatever that is. And for a lot of these guys, it isn't, being these superstars, it's just being solid role players that now are capable of earning an NFL job, right? And whatnot. And so you need those 2 years and overcome, instead of basically spending the next 6 months developing, Bralen Trice is going to spend the next 6 months rehabbing. And that's going to be a major setback for his progress. I already sort of thought that, he projected as probably a high-end backup in the NFL. And I don't think this is, helping, those projections go differently. So we'll see how he recovers from that injury, but it is devastating to the player and the person. And, we'll see what he can do. I'm sure that plenty of people will point out, well, there are guys that have missed time in their first years and bounce back. I would guess a lot of those guys were like first, second round players, so higher round picks. So they're granted more opportunities than some of the late round guys. Right. So, Bralen Trice being a third round pick, that does help him, right? That does mean he has probably a better shot of beating the odds than, say, a Brady Ewing or Devin Fuller. But we'll just hope for the best on that one. Now, when it comes to DeMarcco Hellams, a lot of people are probably wondering why didn't we get an update on DeMarcco Hellams? And again, this is just me speculating. Raheem Morris will, talk to the media tomorrow morning, Monday morning before practice. My guess is, and again, it's just purely a guess, I don't know. To me, this suggests that Hellams is a candidate for the short-term IR, right? Which would explain why they didn't put him on IR today, right? And for those of you that don't know how this works, right? If you go on injured reserve, the IR, before final cuts are made, that's August 27th this year, you're out for the season. Right? You can't come back. But if you go on IR after August 28th or later, you are eligible to return after 4 weeks. And so, again, this is purely hypothetical speculation on my part, but let's imagine that Hellams' injury is not season ending and he's only going to miss 2 months. Well, theoretically, he could come back around week 6 or so, around that Thursday night game for the Bucs, before or after. And if, he was to miss 3 months, he could be back around the bye week. So that's kind of the hope. I'm hoping that we're going to get that update from Raheem Morris on Monday, but we'll sort of wait and see on that front. But with the loss of Trice that we know of, it begs the question that so many people have is like, are the Falcons going to go out there and make that splash move? Are they going to trade for a Haason Reddick? Are they going to try to upgrade this edge room because, they're losing so much with Bralen Trice? And we'll break that down as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. Now, training camp in the NFL is all about finding the right professionals to fit your football team. And the same is true that you're looking for the right professionals for your small business, but you don't have to sweat it out in the Georgia heat. All you got to do is go to LinkedIn Jobs because they have the tools that are going to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just any old job board. They're going to help you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those that aren't actively searching for a new job, but just might be open for the perfect role. In any given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So before we get into Edge Talk, I want to tell you about Locked On Fantasy Football, where you can get, whose stock is up, whose stock is down based off of this first, full weekend of preseason action for your upcoming fantasy drafts. Locked On Fantasy Football, of course, is free and available on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So will the Falcons go out there and get an edge? Probably not. They've had 5 months to go out there and get an edge, and they haven't really done it. We've been sitting here for like 2 years and saying, hey, man, if we can get a 10-sack edge guy, like that's going to really help this defense. And what did the Falcons do? They got James Smith-Williams, who had 1 sack last year, and Bralen Trice, who's projected to have 2 sacks this year if he's a typical third-round edge, right? I don't think losing Bralen Trice is a devastating blow that other people will portray it as. Again, that's not because I hate the player. I just hate rookies. Right? Rookies are bad. Like that's just the bottom line. And when you look at what a typical third round edge rookie production is going to do his rookie season, and I didn't see anything that told me that Bralen Trice was going to do significantly more than this. They average, I've talked about this many times, about 2 sacks and about 15 pressures. That's basically what Jacob Mariner gave to the Falcons in 2020. That's basically what Steven Means. I think Steven Means had 3 sacks and 24 pressures that same season as a starter. And so basically what I'm sitting here telling you, if Bralen Trice had a Steven Means like production, right, that would have been a great rookie season for Bralen Trice. That would have meant that he was better than most rookies, right? That's what I mean where I say like rookies are bad, right? So I didn't go into the season expecting Bralen Trice to really move the needle. And so I don't think losing him really moves the needle, but it's led to a lot of people starting to clamor about what about the pass rush? And I think a lot of this has to do with, people being disappointed in Arnold Ebiketie. Arnold Ebiketie I thought was fine on Friday night against the Dolphins, but I think part of it is people are now doing the thing that I probably have been telling you for 3 months to do, with pump the brakes on the whole Arnold Ebiketie breakout potential, because the film isn't great, right? Again, he was fine. Again, he kind of struggled as a run, in run defense on a couple of plays against Miami, but like that's nothing new. That's been the main reason why he hasn't played a ton the last couple of years, because contrary to the opinion of fans, coaches still want to stop the run, and so he hasn't been great in that regard. And that's why Lorenzo Carter and James Smith-Williams are the projected starters, because they're going to give you a little bit more oomph in run support than, Arnold Ebiketie and potentially Bralen Trice could have, or even D'Angelo Malone or whoever else you want to throw out there. But, I think that sinking feeling that so many people are feeling is it's called gravity, right? Because your head has been in the clouds for several months about the potential of the Falcons defense, and you're falling back down to earth a little bit. And I've been down here the whole time. I'm ready to catch you guys. Just line it up. Oh, I got you, right? So we'll see what that does. But I don't think the Falcons are going to make any bold moves. They don't really have the cap space to make any bold moves, right? People are monitoring the Haason Reddick situation in New York. They had plenty of ample opportunity to trade for Haason Reddick in March. They didn't pull the trigger then. Maybe they pulled the trigger now, but there's reasons why they probably wouldn't. They're in the middle of a negotiation with AJ Terrell. You're going to pay Haason Reddick like $19 million and not pay AJ Terrell $19 million? Or are you going to pay both of those guys $19 million? And that, that's a whole situation that I don't think the Falcons are going to invite themselves in. Similar to all the people that are like, since Hellams got hurt, like we should go out there and get Justin Simmons. And it's like, if they wanted Justin Simmons, they would have got Justin Simmons like 4 months ago, guys. Right? If they were looking for a new starting safety, they would have added a starting safety this offseason. They didn't do that. So now all of a sudden, because DeMarcco Hellams went down, it was probably going to be a dime safety that they're going to suddenly be like, we're going to go out and pay Justin Simmons whatever his asking price is, which I'm assuming is probably like $8 million a year with only $3 million in cap space. Okay, all right. Again, if you want to have your heads in the clouds, hey, I'll be right here to catch it. So, you guys do you. So I don't think the Falcons are going to make a move. This is the complacency that you heard me complaining about in March. It just seems like everybody else is starting to catch up now. Okay. It's like, that's the Locked On Falcons promise. Again, if I wasn't so humble, I wouldn't be going, I told you so, but I'm too humble to say I told you so with some of these things. But the Locked On Falcons promise is that, you're going to be months ahead. If you listen to this podcast every day, on YouTube or wherever your preferred podcast platform is, you're going to be weeks, months, streets ahead of everybody else. When it comes to these things. So the things I complained about in March and April and May, it's like other people start complaining about in April. I'm sorry, not in April, in August, in September. And it's like, oh, welcome. Hey, welcome. So we'll see. This is why I've been not as like hunky-dory on this team, because it's like, yeah, man, we lost Steven Means today. Again, as harsh as that sounds, like we were really counting on Steven Means to really move the needle for this pass rush, like we've done in the past. Like that's worked out so well for this defense in the past. So we'll see if the Falcons do something. Again, the final cuts are August 27th. We'll see if a proven veteran becomes available, or some talented young pass rusher becomes available. between now and then, and they're willing to play for cheap. This team hasn't been all about restructuring and moving money around. They have $3 million in cap space. They have the least amount of cap space in the NFL, right? To even acquire Haason Reddick in a trade, you'd have to free up at least another $12 million in cap space. This team hasn't really restructured much of any. Like, I think Taylor Heineke was the first contract that they restructured, and they basically saved like $2 million by doing that. It's like, okay, like, I guess you could have saved like $7 million by cutting them, but like they were like, nah, we ain't about that life. So, again, that's just me complaining. I'm just sitting here going like, hey man, this is the perpetual state that I'm always in, guys, where you're like, why is he so negative? Why is he always being Mr. Drew? Because I'm just like, this is, that's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry, like this is where I'm at all the time. So I'm glad some of you guys are joining me on this island. But yeah, we'll see if the Falcons do that, as I suggested last month, right? Our hope is, maybe Dallas, keeps Dak Prescott after the season. We'll see. And then they basically like, we can't pay Micah now. And he becomes a trade candidate next March. And the Falcons got to give up, the next 3 drafts to go get him. And that solves their pass rush issues. And in the meantime, the offense is going to be able to carry it. But, we'll see. We'll see on that front. Trade deadlines, like first week in November. So again, some stuff may develop over the next couple of months. But like, this is why you've heard me say, like, hey, if you believe in this defense, good luck with that. But yeah, can you get Bralen Trice level production from other? Can you get Stephen Means level production from other players on the team? Guys like Damon Harris, guys like Arnold Ebiketie, Lorenzo Carter, James Smith-Williams. Sure, the problem is that we want more than Stephen Means level production from this edge room at this point in time. So that's going to be the issue. And so whether or not the Falcons are going to be able to find options, they're going to give them more than that is the big question. So we'll see what develops, but I wouldn't hold my breath that the Falcons are about to make some big splashy move, right? Again, this complacency, right? They don't believe that they have to worry about the defense. We saw Raheem on the Pivot podcast 7-8 days ago saying, hey, with this defense, this is going to be great. We're going to be great. It's like, hey, so if you're feeling down right now, just go listen to that episode, that 15-minute soundbite, that 15-second soundbite of Raheem telling you why it's all going to work out fine and why the young talent on this defense are going to be so good this year. And hey, we can hope springs eternal, right? We wouldn't be Falcon fans if it wasn't possible to have hope, right? Things would have ended a long time. So we'll see if the Falcons do it. But I'm just basically saying, don't hold your breath that the Falcons are going to make some big, bold move for Haason Reddick or Justin Simmons, right? If they were of that mindset, then we would have seen some evidence at some point in the last 5 months that's the mindset that they were approaching things, and that hasn't been their mindset now. And I don't think losing a couple of young backups like Bralen Trice or DeMarcco Hellams or Harrison Hand or whatever, Dathan Rourke, whoever you want to throw in there, is going to shift that mindset. Well, now we have to do things completely differently because we lost a couple of role players. So we'll see on that front. I hope I'm wrong, but we'll see on that front. So I would not expect the Falcons making a big bold move, but that's not going to stop anybody from speculating and getting those clicks. And why we got to go out there and sign Carl Lawson? Why we got to go out there and sign Yannick Ngakoue? And why we got to go out there and trade for Haason Reddick? So do you whatever you want to do? But we'll wrap up today's episode talking about the impactful move that the Falcons made for their special teams, if not their defense, by signing Jakeem Grant. And we'll break that down as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. Passion, drive, patience. It is the formula for winning championships, and it's also what's going to keep your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, seatbelt covers like I just ordered a couple of weeks ago. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash, baby. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So the other significant move that the Falcons made, first reported by Tom Pelissero, NFL Network on Saturday, and they confirmed it on Sunday, announcing the signing of Jakeem Grant. And essentially, Jakeem Grant is being brought in to replace Rondlae Moore. He spent most of his career as a very productive kick and punt returner for the Dolphins from 2016 to 2020. He took 3 punts to the house and 2 kickoffs to the house during that span. He got traded to the Bears midway through the 2021 season, had a 97-yard punt return for a touchdown that year. That prompted him to the Pro Bowl that year. The following offseason, he signed with the Browns, but has dealt with injuries the last 2 years and hasn't played since that 2021 season. In 2022, he tore his Achilles. In 2023, he missed the season due to a torn patellar tendon in his knee. And so this is a move to bolster special teams, not really offense. Right now, if the Falcons do want to make a move on offense, again, I don't think they're going to make a move for Haason Reddick or Justin Simmons, but there's a sliver of a chance that they might make a move for someone like a Juju Smith-Schuster. We've seen Ike Hilliard being like, I'm getting all my former Steeler guys in here, whether we're talking about Ray McLeod or James Washington, right? Why not Juju? Right now, again, it's a low probability that they're going to sign Juju. Basically, if for some reason they move off of Jakeem Grant, right, he doesn't necessarily fit their plans at special teams, and they want an insurance policy behind Ray McLeod at the slot, I could see them, picking up Juju on like a 1-year deal or something. It may be. There's a chance, right? Again, it's not going to be as incessant as it was last year with Corey Davis watch, but we might be on Juju Smith-Schuster watch, for the next couple of weeks here on the podcast. So that will be something to keep an eye. Again, low probability, but there's a chance, right? Now with Jakeem Grant, he's basically Ray McLeod. Same thing, same resume, probably a better returner historically, at least in terms of scoring touchdowns. But he's a gadget guy on offense. He's not really moving the needle on offense. The Falcons are in on Ray McLeod as the number 3 wide receiver. I wrote up something at the Falcaholic, some of the reasons why the Falcons seemingly preferred Ray McLeod over Rondlae Moore as that number 3 wide receiver. All of these guys being gadget guys, it's not really about what they can do on offense, or really what it is about doing on offense is not because one is particularly more skilled than the other guy is as a wide receiver. I think Ray and Rondell and Jakeem are all basically the same. It's Ray's blocking is the key for that. So go check out that piece at the Falcaholic. I'll leave a link in the description below so that you can check that out. But to me, this move, since this move was announced on Saturday night, it has got me thinking a lot about the sort of new kickoff format. And basically, you have 2 returners, and you need 2 competent returners with the new format. And previously, I thought that was going to be Ray McLeod and Avery Williams. I know previous episode I suggested only one of those guys would be the primary guy. That was my misunderstanding of the new kickoff format. I thought it was going to be an up man and a return guy, but it's 2 guys that simultaneously have equal chances of returning the kick. So you need 2 competent returners with the new format. And I think with Ray McLeod graduating, if we could say that, to offense as the number 3 wide receiver, his snaps on special teams are probably going to drop precipitously, right? We saw this last year with, who was the punt returner, right? At the beginning of the season when Mike Hughes was returning punts, D. Alford was comfortably the nickel cornerback. But then midway through the season, when they wanted D. Alford to start returning punts, he stopped being the nickel cornerback and Mike Hughes took over, right? And part of that was because Marquise Williams, the Falcons special teams coordinator, he talked about this a lot in his press conferences that year. You got to listen to those from time to time. You get some nuggets every now and then, which is basically they keep these guys on the pitch count so they don't wear down, right? Either for defense or special teams. And I think they're going to probably do the same thing with Ray, probably because he's going to play 30-plus snaps a game as that number 3 wide receiver. So to me, Grant is basically solidifying that second kick returner spot that Rondlae Moore theoretically would have played. Now, I know the unofficial depth chart came out last week, and Rondell was listed as a kick returner. I kind of was like, whatever, it's not going to happen. It's going to be Ray McLeod and Avery Williams. And shout out to Trayshawn on Twitter, who pointed this out. But yeah, I do think this is one instance where the unofficial depth chart was actually probably accurate, where Rondell Moore was going to be that second guy with Ray McLeod getting promoted to offense. And Friday night's Miami game was basically an audition for, with Rondell being hurt and out for the season, it was an audition to see if somebody else currently on the roster could step up and be that second guy. And you saw 5 different guys back there on kickoff returns: Carlos Washington, Micah Abernathy, Natron Brooks, Dylan Drummond, and Trey Vival. Washington and Brooks both muffed their returns. And so, you can't impact on the new kickoff if you can't field the ball, right? If you're fumbling the ball. And so basically, I think those fumbles led to the team. Basically, we need to go out there and get someone who's proven that can field these, kickoffs and whatnot. Like basically, if they're high kicks, like punts. So we need an experienced returner like a Jakeem Grant. And so that's why the Falcons go out there. So right now, Jakeem Grant, I think, is safely probably wide receiver 5. That's primarily going to be a special teams guy. He might get a couple of gadget plays at this point in time on offense. Casey Washington now moves probably back to wide receiver 6. Kadero Hodges, wide receiver 4. And of course, Ray McLeod, Darnell Mooney, and Drake London are 3, 2, and 1 in that particular order. So that's right now where I kind of see the wide receiver depth chart at this point in time. So, this is intriguing to me because I've been spending a lot of time thinking about the new kickoff format a lot over the last week, listening to guys like Joe Marino and Kyle Krabs over at Locked On NFL Scouting with the draft dudes. Mina Kimes having, what's his name? Sam Schwartzstein, who basically was the inventor of this kickoff for the XFL a couple of years ago on her podcast talking about this. And like this signing kind of, to me, suggests that the Falcons are also in this camp. We've seen very vanilla returns in the preseason. I think NFL teams, the theory, at least the working theory that many people have, is that NFL teams are purposely holding their cards close to the vest in terms of what they're planning on doing. And when we get to the regular season, we might start seeing some trick plays and gadget plays, throwbacks, reverses, all these various things to try to take advantage of this kickoff rule. Now, of course, that's what everybody's hoping and wanting to see in this new kickoff format. And then, sometimes the NFL is just being vanilla just because they're risk averse. And so that's also a possibility, but we're hoping. But the fact that the Falcons made it a priority to go out there and get Jakeem Grant makes me optimistic that they are also one of these teams that's cooking up things, and they're not going to treat kickoffs as kind of a throwaway play like they did. And they're going to really try to take advantage of it. And having a speedster like Jakeem Grant, having Avery Williams back there, and also, potentially having Ray McLeod. And should Ray McLeod not live up to the hype as a number 3 wide receiver, that's the timeline where we start talking about Juju Smith-Schuster again. Much more likely that Juju Smith-Schuster plays for the Atlanta Falcons this year than I think Justin Simmons or Haason Reddick. But again, we can hope. We can hope. So we'll see on that front. But that to me is why this move is interesting, because it speaks of special teams, and anybody who knows me, Trayshawn's the only person out there that can also appreciate this. Special teams matter. He's the only person I can have these conversations, these deep conversations about, kickoff returns and whatnot. So appreciate you, Trayshawn, for your insight into that. But yeah, that's it. In terms of what these roster moves mean, we'll see what updates we get about DeMarcco Hellams on Monday morning. We'll see. We'll talk more about, some guys that help their chances later this week, their stock up in terms of improving their stock. There's like 5 guys that I think, a week ago I wouldn't have had on my 53-man roster, but now I would. And some of that is owed to the injuries, Jakeem Grant for Rondlae Moore, Damon Harris for Bralen Trice, Dane Cruikshank for DeMarcco Hellams, Kevin King, as the last corner, and then Eddie Goldman switching with LaCale London. So those are the guys that I think their stock is up, in addition to the Zach Harrisons and Michael Penix's. I'm thinking of greatness, and I confuse Micah Parsons and Michael Penix. It's an easy mistake for me to make, so I apologize. How dare I do that? But we'll see on that. We might talk potentially later this week about is Zach Harrison an internal solution at edge? We'll see. So that may be another topic to explore. So make sure you continue to make Locked On Falcons your first listen. All you got to do is subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, and check out Locked On Fantasy Football to get the latest on whose stock is up for your upcoming fantasy drafts. And of course, check out Locked On Sports Atlanta and the whole host of Locked On shows here in Atlanta. Locked On Hawks, Locked On Bulldogs, Locked On Braves. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every